Hey crew, it's Chris with CloverTac and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the new table that I built to go out on the range and how that table only cost me $8 out of pocket. If you're new to the channel here on CloverTac, we talk about all things firearm related. So if you're into that, jump down and smash that subscribe button. And to keep up to date on new content, go ahead and click that notification bell as well. So a few days back, I was rummaging around in an outbuilding and I found an old broken down folding table. The top was worn and cracked and weathered and water damaged. And I thought, wow, this could be a cool project to repurpose for use out on the range. Now, my original thought was just to replace the tabletop portion of this thing with some plywood. And then I went online and oh my God, thanks a lot 2020, but the price of plywood and MDF and OSB and that sort of thing absolutely through the roof and not an option. So I made a trip down to the local Lowe's home improvement store and was looking for some alternatives. How could I build a tabletop for this broken down folding table for an economical price? And I found some dog-eared fence pickets down there. Now they're about 5/8 inch by 4 inch by 6 foot pieces of lumber, and I thought, hey, I could use those potentially and make a tabletop. The great thing, those only cost about $1.25 a piece. Now the first step for resurrecting this table was going to be to remove all of the metal hardware from that old tabletop, and I wanted to do this carefully. That way I didn't damage anything any more than it was already damaged. Wanted to preserve that tabletop as much as possible in case I needed to go back to that and get measurements or maybe get a pattern for screw holes or that sort of thing. Next, I needed to cut down these 6-foot pickets. The original dimensions on this table were 2 foot by 4 foot and the pickets were 6 foot long. Not a problem. Use a chop saw, cut those down to the proper length. Now I had an idea that the dog-eared portion of these fence pickets would come in really handy on the finished tabletop. And so what I wanted to do is the ends that I cut flush to cut those boards to length, I wanted to dog-ear those ends as well. And a little later on at the end of this video, you'll see exactly why I want both ends of these pickets to be dog-eared. Now, in order to attach these pickets to the actual tabletop frame, that frame was going to have to be reinforced. It was just a metal ring, really no support structure there. And luckily, when I do projects, I usually buy extra lumber, had some 2x4 sitting around. So simply cut those to length where they would fit inside the frame and add some support to the new tabletop. Now, I run into a little bit of an issue when I went to do this because the frame, that tabletop frame, had a channel. And it was not the width of a 2x4. It was much, much smaller. So needed to cut down the ends of the 2x4. And what I did was just kind of tapered it back to center so that everything would fit properly. Once all of that fit into the channel on that tabletop frame, then just drilled some holes and screwed those support beams, whatever you want to call them, into place. Before we continue with the story of my $8 range table, a quick question of the day. Have you ever rebuilt or repurposed anything that you're proud of? Share that with us down in the comments below. Back to the story here, and now it was time to attach those pickets to that newly reinforced tabletop frame. Now to do this, I wanted to make sure that my screw holes, all that stuff was good and even. First thing I did was lay those pickets out, and then working from center off of the frame, go ahead and mark the points and pre-drill some pilot holes for where my screws were going to be. After that, it was just a matter of laying those pickets out on the frame, spacing them properly with my carpenter's pencil, and screwing them down into place. Now with the new tabletop finished, it was time to flip that sucker over using the old tabletop as a pattern, get all of the legs, the hardware, put all that into place. Of course, again, going off measurements from the old tabletop, then using the old screws and stuff like that, go ahead and screw all that old metal hardware into place on the new tabletop. And with that, this project was done. And here's my newly remodeled, repurposed, rebuilt table for out on the range. You'll definitely see this table in future videos. Now remember me saying earlier how the dog ears on these pickets were going to come in handy. Well, here you go. They make the perfect spot to lean those long guns up against the table without fear of them sliding around or falling over. Now, once it was said and done, had about $8 again into the cost of those fence pickets, and everything else I used already had laying around the house. So sometimes being a pack rat and a cheapskate really pays off. As always, if you have questions, comments, or just want to continue the conversation, you can do that down in the comments below. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. Until next time, don't forget to chain fire freedom.